Hey guys, welcome to infoJunkie. If you're a fan of the dark, macabre, the interesting, and true crime, then you came to the right place. Our first case takes us back to 1940. Ronald Gene Simmons was born July 15th in Chicago, Illinois. His parents were Loretta and William Simmons. Unfortunately, when Ronald was 2 years old, his father would die of a stroke. 1 year later, Loretta would remarry to a man named William Griffin. Griffin was a civil engineer for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The military would move Griffin and his family to Little Rock, Arkansas in 1946. This would be the first of very many moves for the family, and unfortunately, this would cause Ronald to be unable to make friends or have any stable relationships throughout his childhood. In fact, in 1957, Ronald Gene Simmons would actually drop out of school at the age of 17. He would then decide to join the U.S. Navy. He was first stationed in Washington, and that was where he met a woman named Rebecca. Shortly after that, Rebecca would follow him to New Mexico, and they would get married at age 20 in 1960. Over the next 18 years, Ronald and Rebecca would have 7 children, while Ronald himself would actually have 8. He would be awarded a Bronze Star, a Republic of Vietnam Cross for service as an airman, and an Air Force Ribbon for excellent marksmanship. This would complete a 22-year military career when he retired on November 30th, 1979 at the rank of Master Sergeant. April 3rd, 1981, Cloverdorf, New Mexico Department of Human Services voiced allegations against Ronald. They believed that he had fathered a child with his 17-year-old daughter, Sheila. He fled to Ward, Arkansas shortly after he found out in 1981. He wouldn't stay there long when he would end up moving again to Dover, Arkansas to throw off his trail and to avoid his capture 2 years later in 1983. They took up a 13-acre farm that was 6.5 miles north of Dover. It was later known to be called Mockingbird Hill. The family's home was 2 double-wide trailers put together, and their land was surrounded by a makeshift privacy fence that was 10 feet tall in some places. They had no phone, and they had no plumbing. This guy was definitely trying to stay off the radar. Simmons worked a string of low-paying jobs in Russellville. He actually ended up quitting Woodline Motor Freight after multiple reports of unwanted and inappropriate sexual advances were made towards other co-workers. He then got a job at Sinclair Mini Mart, where he worked for 1.5 years until he decided to quit December 18th, 1987. The days following, he forced his children to dig a mysterious cesspit. On December 22nd, 1987, Ronald Gene Simmons would then shoot his wife with a .22 caliber pistol and then shoot his eldest son, Gene. Next, he strangled his 3-year-old granddaughter, Barbara, and dumped the bodies of the corpses into the cesspit that he had his children dig just days before. This is when it gets sick. In the afternoon, he waited for his children to come home from school on the bus. He ended up telling each of them that he had a big surprise for them for Christmas, and they were each going to get their own presents, and he wanted them all to come in individually to take their Christmas gifts and open it up. This was when he first killed his 17-year-old daughter, Loretta, by strangling her and forcing her head into a barrel full of water. Next, he would murder his children, Eddie, Marianne, and Becky, which were all killed in the same manner. On December 26, 1987, the remaining members of Ronald's family would come over for a Christmas celebration. He shot his son Billy and his wife Renata, and then strangled and drowned their 21-year-old son Trey. Then he shot his daughter Sheila and her husband Dennis McNulty. Now, Sheila was his daughter that he had sexually abused and impregnated, ultimately fathering his granddaughter and daughter, Sylvia Gale, who was either 6 or 7 at the time of her death. There's conflicting information anywhere I look. Ronald then decided to strangle and christen Sylvia Gale along with her 21-month-old brother, Michael, the son of Sheila and Dennis. Simmons then laid the bodies of his freshly slaughtered family in nice, neat rows in his living room. All of the members were covered by coats, except for his daughter, Sheila, who he covered with Rebecca's best tablecloth. The bodies of his 2 infant grandsons were then wrapped in plastic and stored in cars that were abandoned and at the end of the lot. After this, Ronald decided to go out drinking at a local bar, and then he came home, drank some more, watched TV, seemingly oblivious to the decaying corpses laying around him in his living room. And he did that for a couple of days. Then, on the morning of December 28, 1987, Simmons drove into Russellville and walked into a law office and shot dead the receptionist Kathy Kendrick, age 24. He had previously been infatuated with Kathy and had been rejected by her multiple times, and also blamed him for many of his problems in life. Next stop, Simmons arrived at an oil company office and shot down J.D. Chaffin, age 33. He then shot the owner, Rusty Taylor, who was only wounded. After that, he drove to a convenience store he previously worked at and shot 2 more individuals that survived. Then he went to his previous employer at Motor Freight Company, where he had shot and wounded a woman. He then sat in the office and chatted with one of the secretaries until police came, where he then handed over his gun and turned himself in, without resistance. John Byram successfully prosecuted the case. Simmons was first tried and later found guilty for 16 counts of capital murder, ultimately sentencing him to death. He supported this sentence, going on to quote, "I, Ronald Gene Simmons, Sr., want it to be known that it is my wish and my desire that absolutely no action by anybody be taken to appeal or in any way change this sentence. It is further respectfully requested that this sentence be carried out expeditiously." The trial court conducted a hearing concerning Simmons' competence to waive further proceedings, and they conducted that his decision was both knowing and intelligent. Simmons' life was threatened constantly on death row. This caused him to be moved away from the other inmates and put into solitary. Since he refused to appeal his own sentence, other inmates feared that him doing this would damage their own chances to appeal their own sentences, avoiding the death penalty. In fact, another inmate named Jonas Whitmore unsuccessfully attempted to appeal Simmons' case. On May 31st, 1990, Ronald Gene Simmons' execution warrant would then be signed by then Arkansas Governor Bill Clinton. On June 25th, 1990, Simmons would then choose lethal injection and would then be put to death that day. After that, none of his family wanted to claim his body, and he was buried in a Potters County field. And that's our story for today. Thanks, guys. If you could subscribe and like the video, that'd be great. You can even turn on that notification and say that part. I'm not going to.